like when they say, oh.
Probably.
It's like, yeah, twice in 1 week.
Oh, God. Who's missing? Stan's missing? He's not?
If they can catch it. But at night,
Well, gee, thanks for
they're gonna come.
letting us know.
Get darts.
What's going on with that? Which
You
is-
didn't know either?
No.
We can do it.
Your top two people and you didn't even know.
They just said, keep.
Little email, hey.
Yeah. Oh, we decided not to renew. Wow, that was nice of him.
Yes.
Well, this is 3 that I. He was up at the
I
dump.
don't even know when my term's up.
Sorry. But really kind of.
Yeah, there's a couple different things, yeah.
A lot of
I'll
people
stick
got
around.
their dogs through there. And the
Do I
daycare has this
Where are you moving?
with
Don't
an
know.
adult at one end, adult at the end,
know when.
and all these little tiny kids in between.
I still have two parents we're taking care of. When they're no longer with us, we're out of here.
Probably wouldn't
I
have.
have enough in Portland and the.
Probably isn't good.
How are you?
I don't know, I thought
That's
wondering
the
my,
option.
my.
Right now, Florence is the #1 city we're looking at.
Yeah, they're more scared of us than.
And I told my husband, if something happens to you and we're still living in this house, I'm moving to Vegas. That's what I want to go to. Like Henderson. and
But
get
it
out.
makes me think about air and water.
Oh, we got women finally. Yes.
Hello.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. I'm Jim.
Lynn.
Nice to meet you.
Linda,
Lynn, so nice to meet
nice to
you.
meet you.
Jim, I think we met years
we-
and years ago.
Really?
We met recently too,
Okay.
but I think, but
like
my friend Lacey used to work
Back
for you
there,
in the
Yeah, someone
nineties.
Really?
And I would pick her up from work and
Oh,
you were
you know-
always just so sweet because we were teenagers.
Yeah,
You know, and you were just like so sweet to us. and
Oh,
all to her and
wow.
Guy.
He's so sweet.
Lacey, how's Lacey doing? Do you still?
But
Yeah,
I thought it was someone.
Okay, she has a little
Good,
girl
good,
who's
good,
so
but
sweet.
turns out-
She's autistic,
What
but
kind?
they're getting through it. I
Good.
think it was kind of a rough there with the diagnosis and things.
Yeah,
There was one
They're-
time
they're
when the
doing-
screaming
they're
man was
doing
hanging
good.
out at the top of the hill.
Like she helps me be.
We heard a
such good
woman
mom just by, you know.
screaming
She
holy
used to
murder.
babysit our kids. She was, oh, yeah, yeah, she's. Driving sorry.
Yes, and she's so good with
Tell her
people.
hello.
I will,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
We're not used to.
Yeah.
So what brings you to the board here?
I'm on the council
Okay.
and I think there was like some counselor shuffling between the commissions because I was on the parks for a while.
Okay, yeah,
And then I was like, well, I'll try planning. because
So,
I think
uh,
Hiro makes more sense than Hiro.
And he
stress,
took a
you could
garbage can
either,
and
you know,
smashed it.
hire an
yeah. Good, good, good.
or have them
Car.
trim.
Then most
Well, have
recently.
I saw you?
On
Three weeks
occasion,
ago,
It could be, yeah. I mean, I feel like they're so few and
Be
far
with
between,
me.
but yeah. I
Maybe.
think
got from some place and
the place spaces. Especially like you've been here forever, like I have, like I've lived here, so I don't know where I know. people.
Yeah.
You know, like, do I know you from high school? college,
Somewhere.
or-
Well, thank you for sharing that. with
There's-
me, Because I would have.
Yeah, of course.
pretty close to our backpack.
you could
We're riding
either
it from the side.
just send an email or
Then we heard it in the front.
online
Okay.
form you
And
can
so we
fill out
closed the
and
doors
send,
and
you
we
can
were
even send. And you can use
He
that,
says, think we can't.
check them out.
Yeah,
We've had the same
And then
thing.
the
in the
next,
back
they
part
heard
of
a
our
noise.
park.
So you guys can't send an official-
We don't, with an official notice, yes.
that's what I.
We can, we don't remove them, but we can say
The next day.
either prove that they're not dead or decayed.
And make sure they send the packing it.
Well,
Hmm.
we found you walking through the street going towards the park
Yeah.
with the machete.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Sorry.
we'll wait for.
Yeah.
I had a tree fall on our house in December. Brand new roof, 4 months old.
That close to.
And my insurance company's not here and asked them so I can get my deductible and all that.
Neighbors.
Neighbor's tree because it's rotten. You can tell by looking at it. He wasn't notified that we're aware of. That's why I was just asking him. City can put, he wasn't put on notice and notified, then the insurance company can't. do anything. Are you kidding me? The tree is decayed and there's ivy choking the darn
Let you
thing.
go.
And this electrician, he gets.
Actually.
So he-
That copy, I was just really nice.
This is a second tree.
Okay, welcome everybody, and we'll begin the August 22nd Planning Commission.
Thank you, Chair. I'll start by reading a land use statement to start the hearing. This is a quasi judicial land use hearing with the City of Wood Village Planning Commission. The Planning Commission decision in this matter is based on the applicable criteria as set out in the state planning goals, city comprehensive plan, and Wood Village zoning and development code. Tonight's hearing will be conducted this evening as follows: a presentation of the staff report on the proposed application by staff, presentation and or comments by the applicant, any testimony, questions from the public, those in support, neutral, and opposition, applicant's rebuttal of testimony if they wish, final comments by city staff if necessary, close of the public hearing, and discussion and deliberation by the Planning Commission, which may either make a decision to approve with or without conditions, deny, or continue the hearing. If you wish to testify this evening, please come forward during the testimony portion and state your name and address for the record. All testimony must be directed to the applicable criteria. No additional comments or questions will be accepted after the public hearing is closed unless the Planning Commission decides to reopen the hearing. If you are submitting any written materials into the record, please state the nature of its contents and provide a copy to the city. The Planning Commission may at its discretion entertain additional questions or testimony prior to the close of the hearing. At the conclusion of the public hearing, the commission may approve the application with conditions, deny the application, or continue the public hearing to a future date. If the commission continues the hearing, they will set a date for the continuation of the hearing. The decision on this application will be developed into a final order, which will be available in 7 days after the hearing. A decision of the Planning Commission may be appealed to the City Council by an affected party within 14 days of the notice of decision is mailed. Only the applicant or parties who provided testimony on the record may appeal a decision. We'll now have the presentation of the staff report.
Awesome. Thank you, Greg. Hi, my name is Robin Shaletsky. I am the consulting planner for the City of Wood Village, and I'll be walking through the staff report for file number DR 2301, a type 3 design review, which you all should have in your packet. Okay, so this agenda is very similar to what Greg just walked through. I will talk about the project, the applicable criteria, a few discussion points for Planning Commission, and the findings of fact. We will go back and offer an opportunity for the applicant to speak, and then anyone else as Greg had mentioned. Planning Commission will then close the public hearing and engage in discussion on the discussion points, and then make a motion. So again, working off two computers. So again, this is case file 01. Its address is 23810 to 23842 Northeast Halsey Street. The site is zoned neighborhood commercial. The proposal in front of you is for a food cart three additional food carts. The building and site are currently developed with a commercial use and a coffee kiosk and a food cart. Development, as I mentioned, includes 3 new food carts and some additional changes to the site for minor parking improvements and site improvements and added customer seating, which you'll see on the site plan, which I'll walk through in a few minutes. The reason for the review is that the development of a food cart or food cart pod is subject to design review approval per design review per section 345060.1, which requires a review with the Planning Commission, thus this hearing today. As you can see in the map in front of you, the location is at the corner of Northeast Halsey Street and Northeast 238th. Again, looking at the proposal, this is part of the site plan that was provided by the applicant. We're talking about the red square there illustrates the areas of improvement proposed by the applicant. It's 3 new food carts located on gravel pads. The proposed spacing of the carts themselves comply with the spacing standards in the zoning code. We will talk about that in a few minutes. They're also going to restripe a portion of the parking area. They will relocate the trash enclosures that are currently on site to another portion of the site within that red boxed area with some fencing and screening. They will also be providing a new outdoor seating area. And then just of note is that you can see this on the site plan. Hopefully it's of a suitable type font. The site is fairly large and provides for a substantial side setback away from the residential uses located to the rear at 52 feet at a minimum. And there is existing landscaping and screening along the back of the property and as well at the front, if you can see that. The individual carts will be evaluated for compliance with the zoning code and building code and all other applicable codes when they're installed. And Multnomah County right-of-way provided some information regarding the transportation standards, which we will also get to. So again, look here on the site itself, as you can see, the existing coffee kiosk, not to change, existing food cart, and then a little bit more detail zoomed in on the locations of the food carts on those gravel pads. So let me just. Okay, so that's the proposal. Let me go here. So again, the location you have in that figure 2 is a zoning map, illustrates that the zoning for the site is neighborhood commercial. That's shown in the pink area. There is residential to the south of the site that's zoned light residential 7.5, illustrated in that light yellow color. And then properties are zoned general manufacturing in blue to the north. That's several blocks away. You can see from this site view looking southeast from Google Street View that approximate box of where the proposed food carts would be going and the proposed improvements. That's an estimate based on the Google, so not to scale. So what I'll do for the next several slides is walk through the criteria that that this project has been evaluated against. So the site is in the neighborhood commercial zone, so it's covered under section 230 of the city's zoning code. Mobile food carts are an allowed use. The dimensional standards such as setbacks and height are either met or not applicable. For the landscaping and buffer, according to the base zone criteria, 5% of the site needs to be in landscaping. And although the applicant didn't provide the details on this, this is likely met given the site size and the amount of landscaping surrounding the back of the site. The side and rear landscaping should be landscaped to the L3, which is a landscaping 3 or F2 fence 2 level. And as you can see in the slide here, I've noted this as a discussion point, which I will get to. Noting on the photograph, there's a bit of a gap between the screening on the fencing, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. All the other applicable standards in section 230, the neighborhood commercial zone, have either been met or will be addressed with a related standard in a separate section of the zoning code, meaning either in the, and those are in regards to accessory structures, exterior display, storage and work activities, and again, come back to this fencing and landscaping issue. So moving forward to the section 345 mobile food units and food pods. This is the additional use and development regulations that are applicable to the development of food cart pods and food units. There are 12 specific standards to this specific land use food carts and food cart pods. The first and second have to do with the zoning and location. Those standards have been met. The third and the fourth items have to do with cart accessory items and structures and signage. The applicant has proposed the required items of a picnic area and screened trash, and no new signage has been proposed. Those items have been met. 5 through 8 of those 12 standards have to do with setbacks and separation distance, and those are setbacks and separation distance between the food units themselves. Those have been met. Screening, again, we will come back to that as our discussion point 1. Setbacks from vehicular and pedestrian areas, obstruction of vehicular and pedestrian use areas and landscape areas. Those standards have also been met with the proposed condition of approval, which we'll also talk about in a moment. Standards 9 through 12 have to do with surfacing, a gravel surface, driveway access, which is not changing, the intersection site distance and roadside clear zones, which is being addressed by proposed conditions, and utilities, which are available to serve the site. There are also 4 separate standards in section 345050 for mobile food cart units. And those are 4 separate standards applicable to the carts themselves at the time when they will be installed. These will also be met with a proposed condition restating, ensuring that these standards will be met at installation and at the time of building permit. The of note is that food drive-throughs are, however, in this case, the drive-through that's existing is existing non-conforming. So they're not proposing any new drive-through use. So these standards can be met with the proposed conditions of approval. Lastly, for this section 345, there are the code outlines permit procedures for the process for reviewing food cart pods and food cart units. And this application, as the applicant has provided, and this process here that we're in with the hearing and a staff report is included in those permit procedures. This also includes a list of possible conditions of approval that may be added to an application decision. And so again, we will talk about one of those as decision point 2 later on. Let's see. So the next section that I reviewed, cart pod is section 350 for parking. The auto parking quantity in section 350045 reflects existing retail use and the proposed carts with 31 total spaces being provided on site and 28 being required by code. So as you'll see in the staff report, it's a sum of all of the parking related uses on site, and that standard has been met. For bicycle parking, commercial uses require bicycle parking with either 2 per building or 1 for every 30 spaces. The applicant did not provide information about bicycle parking on site. So what staff is proposing is a condition for installing a bicycle rack for 2 bicycle spaces in order to meet the standard of 1 for every 30 spaces. So 2 bicycle parking spaces seemed adequate for this use. The remainder of the general regulations in section 350 that have to do with parking are either not applicable or have been met. The existing parking area is non-conforming in terms of parking area in landscaping, parking spaces and aisle dimensions, and staff felt that given the temporary nature of a food cart pod, that was not necessary to ask the applicant to redevelop the parking lot with interior landscaping and restriping, except for the proposed condition of approval regarding a couple parking spaces. In section 350070, no loading spaces are required, so this standard is not applicable. Again, for signage, any new signage would be evaluated per all applicable city zoning requirements. And again, the condition of approval is only to reinforce this. If additional signage is proposed, that it needs to be evaluated against the city's standards for signage. No new signage has been proposed with this application, however. Okay, so last but not least, The section in the last section in the staff report has to do with design review criteria and agency public comments. In section 630090, the review criteria shown here, these 9 different review criteria, which these are just shown in summary, have all been met with conditions of approval. They relate to the project in relation to the environment, safety and privacy, special needs of disabled persons, preservation of the natural landscape, pedestrian and vehicular circulation and parking, drainage, buffering and screening, utilities, and again, signage. Item 10 in the review criteria for design review has to do with general criteria regarding plan and code compliance, meaning the city's zoning code, the city's comprehensive plan, and the city's transportation system plan. This has been met with the conditions of approval relayed by Multnomah County right-of-way in regards to transportation, since the 2 right-of-ways adjacent to the project are under the jurisdiction of Multnomah County. And again, no written comments were received into the record. There was a verbal conversation with the city manager regarding noise, parking, and screening.
And that individual's actually here this evening. So the thought is probably during the public comment portion, we'll hear directly.
So just to come back to the 2 discussion points that I alluded to, noted earlier regarding the criteria, the first point for the Planning Commission to talk about tonight is in regards to meeting the criteria 345-0406. And this is under the food cart pod approval criteria, and it has to do with residential screening. And so this criteria has to do with required screening between a food cart pod and a residentially zoned area, which in this case applies to the situation, saying that required screening can include an existing site obscuring fence. And again, for most of the fences treat obscuring except for 2 panels. So staff is recommending a condition of approval to include additional fence screening to comply with this request. And this residential screening requirement also covers the base zones fencing and screening requirement as well. So it kind of covers both of those criteria with 1 condition of approval.
I personally,
Is this a clarifying question?
oh, I thought we were going to talk about
We're
that.
going to talk about
We're
do
gonna-
these
let me-
after we hear from the public comments.
Oh, okay.
You can deliberate when the records.
After the public hearing.
Oh, okay.
We're just
sorry.
introducing them so they're in your mind.
Yeah, sorry. There's a lot to get through tonight. Okay. Planning Commission discussion point number 2 is in regards to, again, the permit procedures that I alluded to for the food cart pods. There is a option for a condition of approval for type 2 applications that again limits the type and number of vehicles or equipment to be parked and stored on the site. Staff is recommending the removal of 2 of the parking spaces noted here as with the red X. 2 of these auto parking spaces for safety and circulation around the one-way drive-through for the coffee kiosk and the food cart. The remaining space count would still meet parking minimums, as I noted. And we would also request through a condition of approval that the applicant include additional striping, pavement striping to ensure a one-way as a condition of approval. And, okay. So what I'd like to do now is, again, I'm just going to very quickly briefly talk about the 9 conditions of approval that we've noted here. So for the, we would ask the applicant to provide a revised Exhibit B that illustrates the site plan with these improvements as noted. And that is in regards to item 2, the site screening, the applicant to provide privacy slats or vegetation to 2 sections of the chain link fence to complete the screening and comply with the food cart pod screening and also the base zone screening. We would also ask for two conditions in regards to circulation, where we would reinforce the one-way traffic pattern around the existing kiosk with striping, and then also remove the 2 parking spaces as noted previously on that site plan in the staff report. And this would be shown on a revised Exhibit B. The other conditions of approval would be, now these 2 next conditions of approval are from Multnomah County right-of-way. One, they are requesting that prior to building permit approval, that the applicant submit and receive approval of a trip generation memorandum. And there are some details there as to what they're looking for. And then if this trip generation memorandum results in additional trips in such a manner that the county deems necessary, the Multnomah County right-of-way has the option here to assess street improvements on the applicant. And then lastly, the last 3 conditions, again, have to do with reinforcing the earlier individual food cart standards mentioned, as well as the processes that are listed in the zoning code regards to certificates of a compliance inspection, and then the siting, construction, and operation of individual food carts needs to continue to meet with those standards for individual food carts when they come in. And then lastly, last but not least, expiration of approval. And this is per the design review section of the code. The design review approval shall expire in 2 years from the date of final design review if Wood Village building permits have not been issued for this project. So with that, okay, I want to come back to these. However, so staff is recommending approval with those 9 conditions of approval. And before the staff leaves the staff report, I just want to check and see if there are any clarifying questions from the Planning Commission. Not deliberation, but just clarifying questions on anything that I ran through here. Thank you. Okay, let me go back. Okay. So that concludes the staff report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, at this point, applicant, step forward and state your name and address, please.
My name is Brad Deely. I'm an architect. My address is 21020 Northeast Broadway Court in Fairview, just down the road.
As far as the conditions, I guess we can talk about those now a little bit, or would you like to share your thoughts?
After talking to the client, we really don't have any objections to any of the conditions of approval. Most of them were things that have been discussed with the planner and with city staff. There's nothing that's objectionable.
Okay.
That'll be after.
Okay. Okay, at this point, do we have a public speak like to come up and speak? State your name and address, please.
Peggy Hart, I'm at 110 Birch Avenue, Wood Village. Directly relating to the site, my back fence would look upon everything, so. My neighbor as well. So I've chatted with my neighbors and most of them said that they're concerned, but obviously not as much as it might be. Some of the simple changes worried me the first week, and then I sat with it for a while and it's not as bad as I thought. I'm more worried about additional crime, additional traffic, noise, the smell of the one food cart, which is quite strong scent and spices. I just food odors, but other than that, I don't think the view is my biggest drawback, is seeing people using the back of the building as a place to So I don't want to see that. And I've been mentioning that. I don't know if there's anything anyone can do about it. You'll see the fencing you mentioned alluded that some of it's blocked on my yard, and that's specifically so I don't have to witness what going on back there. And I have a feeling this is going to get much worse and know what our options are. I'd like to also point out that the traffic of the delivery, the 53-foot trailers snug in there in the mornings, just a couple days ago, there
I
were
don't
some
think
serious
big
issues.
trailers like that in a food cart
They already exist for the market.
for the market.
Yeah.
But that's existing.
Yeah, the market
Yeah.
delivery.
But I think food carts, they'll probably go to cash and carry, Costco or whatever, and bring them in their car.
Yeah.
Because they're small enough.
Yeah, well, what they do is the trucks will park in that drive area to exit the market onto Halsey, not 238. And the traffic of maybe a vehicle or two are fighting each other to get around the truck. And I saw one almost accident in the parking lot this week. I'm just saying that pedestrians are careful.
And that was part of the reason to eliminate the 2 spaces you saw on the
Yeah.
eastern, because they
That
would
makes
kind
sense
of
for the-
back up into
Yeah,
that
makes
area.
sense.
Right.
But I got a feeling there's not gonna be any big trucks for the food carts.
No, they exist though today, and
They're
they
existing
usually
today,
park where
yeah.
the food carts will be, but that's
They'll
kind of
be there, yeah.
between all the tenants.
Right, they park on the grass a lot.
Yeah, then they don't have that space.
There's a few loose dogs that use that space too. Their owner owns one of the markets, and the barking of the dogs watching the other dog. I think it's going to be a real noisy dog mess. Barking dog problem. But I think after I sat with it for a while, I think it's an improvement, but not as bad as it could be. And so I really want to address what kind of screening is recommended. Do we get to negotiate with that? My neighbor, I don't know what he wants to do, who has a
my
wide
concern.
open chain link as well, but I know what I'd like is some changes for that. So I don't have to witness everything.
Well, Peggy, I understand your concerns for sure. Crime, I don't think there's anything we can,
I think the
Food cart.
screening and fencing will help.
yeah. The, there an opportunity to plant some trees backside along with the
That's my
screening and the
concern.
fence?
I already have the biggest maples you've ever. Want to help me trim wood to make a fence.
I think that the whole back there should have some kind of, there's no landscaping on that property per se.
Per se, maybe that's a discussion.
The
You
owner
can
has
bring
discretion.
Brad back up to have that discussion about what screening may
Yeah.
be palatable for all the parties.
Sure. And that would,
That's my big
that may be something that, like I say, Brad, correct? Could maybe help out with maybe some, arborvitae type, something to
Yeah.
get a little height out of and maybe knock down some.
Well, a 6-foot fence is allowed. To understand nothing higher, right? Leave.
6 foot sounds.
I think
right,
it's
doesn't it?
6
Yeah,
is max,
6 feet.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
6
I don't
foot.
think you can go higher than 6, but you can go higher with vegetation.
Vegetation like an
Should have
arborvitae
left the blackberries.
or
on.
floral, the fast growing.
How big
That
is
might be
this?
wonderful. And on my side,
Get
I would consider a heavy shade fabric to also allow whatever I put up or whatever might be there as vegetation. Like to have a very thick screen shade fabric attached to my side. That might help a little bit, but they do use the residential backyards for escaping once they break into like Johnny's. I actually literally told the police officer that for 3 days it was scoping out an escape route from breaking in there. And sure enough, the same guy I saw scoping out for 2 days. I didn't know where he was going to attack, but he ended up hitting Johnny's. I walked over and told Johnny about and it's not the
This is
only
really
time that's
concerned.
happened to us. Yeah, Johnny's,
The convenience
Market.
store owner,
Well, I didn't know that.
right? Okay.
And he's also your neighbor.
well,
Uh,
backyard neighbor, because he,
Oh, I see. Okay.
He owns, yeah.
And so we agreed that we see a lot, us retired ladies. So I was able to report it. I just didn't know where. And then sure, I told my son about it. In 5 minutes, he came back saying he got broken into. It was the same guy that you saw for 2 days scoping it out, using our backyards to get away. Is what we think they were.
So is
doing.
that solid fencing all the way back there? Are there holes in it? Are there gaps in it where?
In my yard, it's complete cyclone with a gate, man gate. Next door is a complete same cyclone with man gate, but other people have a solid wooden fence to my west.
So is yours this area here that's
Yes,
open?
when you zoom in, you'll see about 5 panels of wood that I attached to the cyclone, so I wouldn't witness what I mentioned about earlier.
So,
And I'll keep going if I had more
There's a
wood.
house here now. You know, that,
yeah, there's a,
so we need,
Yeah.
see, that has no screening
Right.
whatsoever.
right. So
Yeah,
with the,
okay.
and then.
The Marshall, the Laurels or something.
Or something like that.
That's what I would.
And
As long as they can't, if it's on the property side of the owner or the food carts. As long as it didn't get large enough to crawl and climb into the yard, that'd be great. Okay. Other than that, that's my major issue is the view, the noise.
And with additional food carts and more people around, that may help with the crime a little bit more. Maybe there's more
Absolutely,
people
right,
around,
right.
you
That's
know, so
true.
not as many. Possibly help.
Right.
Might be a good thing.
Okay.
Questions?
I can't don't remember the code we wrote on this. This is 3, but technically there's 4 food carts and then the kind of permanent coffee one.
So
it's,
technically.
it's a
two
separate
properties.
parcel.
There's 2 properties there. So that's why it's not called a food pod.
Mhm.
They're called food carts.
Ain't
Food
that a
pods
lot?
are 4 or more, but since there's 2 property lines,
It's actually a separate,
3 that's why it's food carts.
And are these gonna have all portable stuff or are they gonna have actual electrical boxes and?
PGE for power, and then they're not connected to city water and sewer. So that would be an outside service providing clean tanks, taking away the dirty tanks. So
And
they
so
are
there's no-
connected to power.
No water source there then?
Correct. I mean, other than what gets brought in, much like the current Gyro King it'd be the same setup as that.
I think I have a question for the residents, concern for the residents, generators. Even if they're quiet, they're gonna be noisy and that would be annoying as heck.
And these are connected to power.
They're PGE
So there
power.
should be no way that generators will be there then.
Not as
What did you say,
proposed.
backup? That they're allowed backup.
They're allowed as proposed, though, it's PGE power. So there wouldn't be generators on these carts.
I mean, if power goes out, I mean,
A temporary
Yeah.
power outage.
It's,
but
That's
anybody can
understandable.
generate.
Any kind of noise code that we have, but the day-to-day, they're PGE power, no generators.
I'm just trying to help them out because I know what I'm going through since 238 got done. Nothing's being done. So anyway, yeah, I think definitely fix that fence so there's slats and all the cyclone there. And I think, like you say, arborvitaes or laurels.
Arborvitae's take quite a long time.
I think laurels will be good because they're nice and you can just cut leaves off, you know, if they go over your fence, because we have it on our property line and that's what we do. We just hack them down. We never water them. They seem to grow pretty good. But you know, it just keeps on going. They're pretty hardy.
Okay, any other questions or?
Oh, east wind trash is just something that we deal with every single day.
Or
I
maybe
can just see it landing in Fairview.
it's going that way. Right? Yeah. Thank you, Peggy.
Thank you.
Okay. Applicant, would you like to respond to any of Peggy's? Yeah, you can come up. Sure.
Yeah, I can talk for days. So one of the biggest challenges I think cities and architects in particular and planners have is addressing issues. social change, crime and safety, and can the built environment actually assist with that, or is behavioral medium that we have to change? So, it's something that, we're taught in school and it's reinforced daily, and it's something that we always unfortunately, there's no,
Mhm.
that's one of those things. Visually, there from a screening work with city staff about what vegetation would be appropriate. Personally, I like holly. It's denser, but it also is a good deterrent. So there are some things from defensible spaces that we can deal as far as plantings and,
Neighbors would like that,
but
I'm
yeah,
sure.
we definitely agree. Smells from food carts, that can definitely be an issue, and unfortunately, there's not a lot.
Are you getting any smells out of the gyro place, the one that's there now? Mm-mm. Okay, so you can smell some. Okay. Okay, I'm just curious if that one, that.
Right, at this point, there's no, my understanding from Ron, the owner, is there's no specific carts, there's no,
Yeah, we don't know.
he doesn't know anybody, he doesn't have a contract or. So we don't know if it's gonna be.
Could be vegetarian.
Yeah. So at this point, there's no. Way to talk about what that might.
He knows they're going in yet, so nobody's applying yet.
Ice cream might work out good.
Hot dog stand, a good hot dog stand. Barbecue.
3 spots. We got ice cream, hot dog.
You just don't have good hot dogs, man.
Any other questions?
No. That was my main concern is the
Okay.
neighbors.
Thank you.
Thank
for
you.
addressing. Yeah. Okay,
Robin is back to you if you want to close the hearing.
Any
okay,
questions?
we'll,
Any other follow-up questions for staff?
You can ask those whenever, close the hearing or not, so.
Right.
any other questions?
No, not at the moment.
So I'll close the public testimony and thank you guys for working together and.
Okay.
Okay, at this point, we'll open up our discussion. Yeah.
No, I don't have anything.
I mean, it sounds like everyone's on board with, slats and some sort of vegetation with the applicant working with the applicable property owners to find
That's
what
the
the
only-
right
yeah.
mix is. If I captured the sentiment,
Are you in agreement? Everybody's in agreement?
and we can capture that as a condition of approval for it.
Yes.
Sure.
Well, if we want to talk about modifying that site screening condition of approval to add in vegetation or something, it just needs to be, we just need to
Sure.
work that out.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's great.
The only, so I'm good with that, adding the vegetation.
Yes.
I'm well with
It's
everything
good.
else. One question that I want to bring up is the bicycle spaces. Did we talk about that? Is there a couple of them?
It would be as a condition of approval, either to show where they currently exist on the site as a whole or where they would be as
Okay.
part of this improvement.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
Bicycle.
Do I have bicycle?
No.
No. Peloton, but I don't bicycle. Okay, thank you.
Now we got to read all this stuff.
Okay, so we can discuss, or at this point, I'd entertain
Motion.
motion.
I motion that we accept all this. Trying to find where I have to start reading.
It'd be approve the project with the conditions of approval as modified. And you can say so moved now.
I can get this right.
You would just say so moved to what I just said, and that would
Okay.
be the motion.
So moved that approvals accepted with the one modification for the vegetation. Correct?
And removal of the two parking spaces.
And removal of the 2 parking spaces.
That's it.
Do I have a second?
Actually, Counselor Amin can't vote on it.
Second.
Liaison.
Second?
Aye.
Both? Great.
Okay.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
And do we have any other?
I just have a couple updates on development in general, if you're all willing to spend 2 more minutes. First one is across the street for Tanny's Bakery. They got their permits a couple weeks ago and they're well underway, hoping to be open. I'll call it November. It could be as early as the first part, or it could be towards, the latter part, materials and things like that. But they're underway. It's going to be, cafe, bakery, should be really nice. Using the bottom floor as like their bakery area and the upper floor is the full cafe. So it'll be a nice addition.
Calories on the city.
Yeah. Chipotle, they're, if you've driven by, they're going gangbusters. The exterior of the building should be wrapped up here in a couple of weeks. They're turning it then over to actually Chipotle to do all the interior improvements while they're finishing up the site work. According to the project managers, there's 2 of them, one for the owner, one for Chipotle, could be open around Thanksgiving, first part of December, definitely by December 31st. It's a corporate target. News on Chipotle, it's going really well. Everyone's pleased with it. In terms of Chick-fil-A, which you all approved about a year ago, they're still waiting on its deed approvals in terms of all the deed components going on at the town center. There's a lot of restrictions and stuff that's deeded. It's not a city thing. They're working through clearing the last little bit of that. We should know more later next month if they've completed the last little bit. But what we've heard is their plans are essentially ready to go to turn into us once that's complete. So hopefully kind of construction springtime is what we've been told would be ideal or optimal. And then in terms of the byway, I was told there was a signed lease yesterday for a restaurant on the east end cap. So we have the long building on Halsey. So the east end of that with the patio and all that.
That standalone.
Not the standalone one, as part of the
last
long
one.
building, the last one on the east end for a restaurant. And then just today, as a surprise, learned that a little market is going to go into the center of that same long building. And then we're still working with an individual for the standalone for a sushi type
That
place.
one you mentioned a couple times.
Couple times we're waiting on the business owner to turn in. I'll call it turn in plans. We've met with them several times with Gresham, understanding here are the steps to go through. In talking with the owner, they expect kind of December 1st of the year to have some activation at this site. So, and then lastly, we have turned in a grant to ODOT for an RFB crosswalk, so the fancy crosswalks on Wood Village Boulevard at Riverwood. And we'll know about that. I think October is when we get notified.
Yes.
And then lastly, we're building disc golf next week,
Next week.
31st.
really happened? Wow.
What is it?
Disc golf.
Well, I do have one more thing to add. About 99% sure the seat is. Wife and kid are making the decision to back to New York. I don't know how long I've been here. She said, or you just said it was a year ago that we voted on Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
You don't want how many years we've been here. Me.
So, had a great time. Wonderful experience, but 10 years in Oregon and kid for a year and a half by ourselves. It's just not in our best interest to stay until health is dwindling. And we just feel like we're robbing our son of his time with his extended family and robbing them of their time with him.
Good decision.
Yeah, and we can have weekends occasionally when we dump them.
That's where this way.
Yeah, there you go.
That's all I had for any kind of other updates.
Okay. Thank you. All right, we'll adjourn. Thank you.
It's so nice to meet you as well. I'm sure we'll
Speak
meet
about-
again and both
speak
of us will
about
be, sorry.
I don't know. We'll see you all again. Goodbye. Take care.
I've never heard of him.